Hello and welcome back to 3D Drawing through Model Drawing. In today's lesson we're going to be looking at doing the pivot and creating the centre boss here and the gear that goes around it's driven on. Obviously we're not going to have it as driven in model form, but I'm going to show you how I will go about producing that centre pivot point and what I'll use to be able to pivot on. Okay, so first of all, if we turn off the runner, the jib, the crane chassis, I'm going to start by just drawing on the crane body. So I'm going to turn that on initially and make sure the history is all the way at the end. So what I'm looking to do now is create this profile on this surface here. So I'm going to create a sketch on that surface. And I want to know where this profile is because I'm going to cut out everything on the inside of here. So I'm just going to create a sort of hole in this area, about that sort of size. Okay. And I need it, the side here, to be in the same position as this point here, which is going to be very difficult to sort out. Why is that already being applied? I'm going to sort this out then. Let's have a look here. So this is 1 millimeter. So it's going to be 1 millimeter from this point here. So if I define that to try and get in the corner to that. There we go. So I'm going to want 1 millimeter on that side. And then the same here, so there. Find it for some reason. There to that corner. Okay, so what's step by? So that's 10 mil. So if we define this as 8 mil, that will give us the width down that centre beam there, which is fine. Define the distance, let's make sure it doesn't clash or anything, it won't. So distance from there to there, I'm going to do it as 3 mil, and there to there is 2 mil. Okay. And then this centre part, I'm going to extrude this up into the cap. Okay, so it shouldn't be cutting away anything on either side. Now the reason I want this cut out is I need to be able to get in here to put any glazing in these two windows on the inside. Okay. And that's purely the only reason why I'm having that. Okay. So we've got a nice thick wall on either side here, okay, which is 2.2 millimeters, which is absolutely fine. So I'm going to draw a sketch on there, slice through that. And all I'm drawing is a rectangle to go from side to side. It's going to be about there. And I'm going to extrude this forwards. This is essentially going to be like a little lip, 2 millimeters to join the body. It's going to be a little lip that this centre cutout that I'm going to draw as the pivot is going to sit on. And then I'm going to draw the same on this side. Slice through. 2 millimeters forwards and join. Okay. So the next thing I want is to draw the pivot itself. So I'm now going to switch to the pivot. I'm going to create a sketch on this inner surface here. Okay, so I'm drawing on this surface here. I'm going to project the geometry of that whole, and project that whole thing there onto that surface. I'm going to offset on the inside here by 0.5 millimeters. And I know that's going to give me 1 millimeter of gap, but the resin does swell slightly, and ultimately I'm going to be gluing this in place after I've done the glazing on the inside. So I've now got this little rectangle here, and I can extrude this downwards, and I want it to actually come and stick out slightly below the body. So 1.5 millimeters, maybe a little bit too much. There, 1.3 millimeters. Okay, and that's going to be a new body in the pivot folder. Okay, so now if we draw on, look on the canvas, on the side on, we want to find out where the center pivot point is. It's not really showing up on there. Let's see if it does on the top one. Turn the body off. That's the canvas we need, this one here, because then we can see this. So if we get the body back on, and we can move, we want the chassis actually back on first. We can move this canvas back into position. Okay, so I'm going to go with about there. Obviously just move it around yourself to try and get this lined up as best you can. Okay, and then we can turn that chassis back off. And we turn the crane body back off and turn the pivot back on. Okay, so we're just about catching where that bit is going to pivot there on that body. Yeah, there's the pivot point. So we can also move this one back now. So turn the chassis and the body back off. We can edit that canvas. So what I'm now thinking is our pivot is not really going to be further enough forward. I need to bring that forward a little bit. Okay, so let's look at the crane body and see what we can do about that on the inside. Turn the chassis off. Turn the canvas off a second, and that one off. And the pivot off. So I can drag this, extrude this forward. So if we just grab that surface there. Don't know why it's doing that. Select that, extrude, and then we can drag this, cut it up here. Okay, how much have we extrude that by? Let's have a look. back into the pivot, turn that back onto the pivot radio check, and drag that 2.1 onto the front there. Okay, and if we have a look at the sketch now, we've got a lot more of that pivot point in there, which is good. Let's turn the canvas back off. The body, I'm going to just remove some of this here. What I'm going to do with the pivot is I'm going to have like a little small rod that comes through from the pivot, a metal rod that comes through into the chassis. Okay, and if we have a look face down now, and turn the body. Okay, so if I create a sketch now on that surface, let's get that body back off. We don't want to actually finish that sketch, delete that. We need to come back onto the pivot, turn that crane body off. There we go. Create a sketch on that inner surface. And I've found the midpoint on the pivot. I'm going to drag it into the middle here. And I'm just going to drill it out. I'm going to go 3mm initially, and then extrude that. If I turn the chassis on, I might be able to come all the way through the chassis at the same time. Oops. Cut that all the way through the chassis. Okay, so this is a bit of a pain because that's not in the right position for some reason. Let's have a look at our body. Yeah, the body's off-centered. Oh, nightmare. Okay, got some sort of mistake here I'm going to have to fix. This should be centered on here. Let's look at the body. This needs to move over because that distance needs to be the same here. There to there. That's done that the wrong way. Sorry everyone for this. So the body width is 15. Chassis is 17.2, so it should be 2.2 from there to there. No, 1.1 from there to there. Let's have a look at this. Move the body. So it's sideways Yeah, that one. Like that. So it's a long way around doing this. Move copy. .6 millimeters. No, that's not centered. Width is 15. 2. That looks centered there. Right, now I've got to look at moving everything else around. So the jib will automatically, if we just bring that across, move the jib over 0.6. And obviously it doesn't really matter once you've printed it because you can place them where they need to be. The runner needs to move over as well. 0.6 as well. So that's sitting okay. And then the last thing we should need to move is the pivot. Turn the chassis off. Turn it off. 0.6. Put that centered. Okay. Let's have a look at the holes now. So if we delete that extrusion, there we go. And now we do edit sketch. Just a second. That sketch. Right. Now we create a new sketch on that surface. Ignore this one here because it doesn't really matter. We don't need it now. Turn the chassis off. Let's have the. Okay, I do apologise to everyone about that, with it being in the wrong position. That body seems, I don't know why it's out of position like that, but at least now you can see how things can happen if you make mistakes. We've got a midpoint there, going up to the line here, and we just did a 3mm diameter circle, and then we're going to extrude that. That's going to need to go two sides because I've done that on the wrong side there. Come up into the body, and if we turn the chassis on, that will enable us to now cut down into the chassis. Hopefully, fingers crossed, he says, that's centered now. Yes. Okay, completely apologise about that, but at least we've fixed that now. We've got that in the right place, and it only really mattered for this because everything else is going to glue in position, in the correct position here once you've printed it. Okay, so the next thing I'll do on the bottom of this pivot is create another sketch. I'm just going to make like a little boss around the outside of this. So I'm just going to create like something like that. Doesn't really matter about the diameter, it's just to create like a rubbing surface, because we're going to have, as a separate part, we're going to draw the gears around here. and they need to be separate, because when I print this chassis, I'm going to print all the supports on this top surface here, not underneath, so that it preserves all the detail underneath better. So I'm going to print on that top surface, print this as a separate part, and the reason I can't do it as one part is all these teeth would then need supporting completely independently, which I don't really want to do. Okay, so once I've got to this point here, that pivot is pretty much done. What you could do is, if you wanted to, is use a metal washer if you can find one the right sort of size here. And the same with the hole here. Whatever hole you use, you've got to be able to find a piece of metal. And I've just picked an arbitrary 3mm. I'll have a look and see if I can find a pin that's about that diameter. If not, I'll change that. I'll go back in history and change it. You can see it's quite a small history to be able to go back in and change that quite quickly. It's going to be pretty easy. This lesson's actually turned out longer to get to this point than I wanted because of this change. I'm going to split this into a different lesson as well for drawing the part underneath. So hopefully you've enjoyed this lesson. I know it's been a bit of a problem, but it can show you how to go around fixing things once you've made mistakes like that. So thanks for watching.